methods, let me go and have a look at what's happening today. All right. So throughout this scientific event, we've been showered with many ideas on how vibrant our teaching, our field of knowledge is. You see, there are many ideas, many things happening now that show us that our profession is alive. We have methodological revolutions, we have contrasting ideas. We have seen, for example, in the morning, we looked at the humanistic approach. So my aim for this is to produce understanding of whether we have moved on the methodology, whether we have to go to another condition, or are we still, or the present status quo is relevant for language teaching. So you're looking at this, a plethora of approaches and methods. To have a look at this question, what's the best language teaching method? Looking at post-method pedagogy, communicative language teaching, some conclusions and recommendations. Okay. Depending on your background, okay, you'll see these approaches as new, old, or even futuristic. The fact that they are there, they exist, yes, but your understanding of your attitude regarding them will be determined by your own background. You see, there are many, many approaches. These are just a few of them as I wrote. I selected this because I believe that they are somehow relevant for language teaching today. We have the cognitive code approach. This focuses on the mental process of language. Language is seen as essentially a mental process. So everything happens in the mind before it is transmitted. So this knowledge should be taken up to the classroom to the consumption of the student. This natural approach is quite simple. It's quite to mimic language acquisition. How do children acquire their first language? Okay, those processes should be taken to the classroom and instilled onto the learners so that they also acquire the language in the classroom. The oral approach, this also focuses on habit formation. Okay? People maintain that the sequence stimulus, response, reinforcement, okay, can actually help students create good language habits. For example, if you ask your student, where do you live? And if they say, I live at Saint Jean, for example, yeah, so you need to reward the student, say, very good. So the stimulus, the question, the response, positive, then you have the reward for the student. Cooperative learning here is encourage collaboration in the classroom. Students work together in groups to discuss language. But the crucial factor here is that the focus is especially on social skills. Now, this neurolinguistic programming, yeah, is very interesting, and for some of you may be new, but it's really quite old. So proponents of this approach, they maintain that the neurolinguistic functions can be programmed in the brain to help language learning. can successfully program your students' brain to help them acquire or learn second language. The dome. Dome is very peculiar in that in this approach, the teacher doesn't prepare classes. Okay, the teacher goes to the classroom and uses him or herself and the students to teach. So nothing is pre-programmed. Okay, you go to the classroom, whatever you find in the classroom, your bag, the computer, the lamps, etc., you use it for a lesson. It's very interesting. So we have many questions that can come to your mind. How does it really work? What about if you're in a public school where you have to follow a specific program? How does this work? So the like school approach, we have gurus at the center. So the maintainers of the supporters of this approach, that everything language resumes to words. So vocabulary should be given primary attention in the classroom. The multiple intelligences is very, very interesting. So most of the time, to predict success or failure in the language classroom, people use IQ tests. IQ tests to predict whether your learners will succeed or not. But the truth of the fact is that intelligence is not only measured through IQ tests. You all have been teachers, you have all experienced how different learners in the classroom learn languages differently. Or sometimes you see some students prefer a certain type of activities, others prefer something else. It means that people have different intelligence tests. I mean, you have, for example, spatial intelligence, natural intelligence, music, logic, and mathematics. So all these aspects, according to these supporters of the multiple intelligences, should be taken into account to cater for the different needs of all the students in the classroom. The whole language approach, so fragmentation of language is forbidden in this approach. Language cannot be approached in its entirety. I mean, the 4 language skills and the 3 language systems. We have communicative language, which we're going to address further later, so I'm going to skip this. Participatory approach, bringing politics in the classroom. So it addresses areas such as linguicism, linguistic imperialism, lingua franca, all those aspects are entailed in the participatory approach. And the garden path approach, which focuses on the combination of traditional ways of teaching grammar with modern second language acquisition perspectives. Okay, so what are some of the methods